Okay, guys, so now we're going to go ahead and create different versions of our obstacles so that every time our player reaches a certain score, we can go ahead and change it. Now, for those of you who have not done the deep dive lessons, you'll have to create this code from scratch. But for those of you who have done it, you can just go ahead and go into your rock sprite, look for this block of code that we created together for the deep dive lesson. You can go ahead and drag it to each one of your different obstacles. So once I drag it in, you can see that it kind of shakes a little bit. And all I have to do next is just make sure that I drop it in. So I just have to do this for the very last one. And now I can just move it to the side. So for those of you who have not created it, it's actually very simple. All you need to do is add a when I receive play, switch costume to 1 to make sure that we always start in the correct costume, add a forever, and then afterwards you're going to add an if statement, and you're going to repeat this a couple of times. You're going to say uh, if score is greater than whatever number you want. So once the player passes this number, then it will show the next costume for this obstacle that we have. And you can see that I do this a couple of times. So then the next time my player reaches a score of 60, it's going to change to a different one, a score of 80, a different one. And then sometimes you can loop back. So by score 100, it'll go back to the very first costume that we started off with. And then you can just go ahead and do this as many times as you want. So once you've created this code, the next thing we want to go ahead and do is create the different costumes for it. And again, you want to go ahead and make sure that you do this for each one of your different obstacles. So I'm just going to go ahead and just move these. Again, for those of you who have not done it, once you're done creating the first code, all you need to do is the same thing I did in the beginning, which is just drag it to the other two, and it'll do the same thing as well. So now for the tree sprite, I'm going to go ahead and go into my costumes. And then from here, I'm going to go ahead and create new versions of it. And if you see by my code, I have 4 different costumes. Okay. If you want to create more than that to swap them out, you guys can feel free and go ahead and do so, but you do not need to do that. So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this. And if I want to, maybe I want to make specifically this one different colored trees. So maybe I'll have one that's red, one that's a little bit yellow, and then my last one, I'm gonna go ahead and have it, make it a little bit of a greenish blue. Maybe for my next one, I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate it. And for this one, I'm going to create maybe a different type of tree. So maybe I'll add some pine cones to this one if I really wanted to. I'll make it a little bit darker. I'll use the circle tool, and then I'll just go ahead and add a couple of pine cones here and there. Maybe for my next costume, maybe I'll change the tree itself. So maybe I'll copy and paste another one of these. Move this to the back. And now I made it a little bit longer. Now they don't all have to be trees. I'm just giving you guys different suggestions of different things that you guys can do for your game. You guys can definitely have one. So for example, maybe for this particular one, I want to go ahead and change it completely. So I'm going to go ahead and select all these different pieces from the tree. I'm going to delete it except for my shadow, which I'm going to obviously reuse. And then I can go ahead and create a new obstacle. So maybe for this one, I want to maybe make a mushroom since it's part of the forest. So I'm going to use a color red. I'm going to start with a circle and just make this into a long oval, which I'm going to put in the center. I'm going to go ahead and add 2 dots to either side, so I can go ahead and move this a little bit higher. And then I might move this a little bit more outward. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click this again, pointed, and then curved, just to open it up a little bit more. Next, I'm going to use my circle tool again, and I'm going to use white. So I can go ahead and make these circles for my mushroom, different sizes. Once I'm finishing up with that, I'm going to go ahead and now make the actual base. Now, I'm not going to make it white because depending on my background, it may be a little bit hard to see. So I'll just go ahead and pick a little bit of a different color, maybe an off yellow. I'm going to go ahead and make kind of the base for it. So the stem. I'm going to use my reshape tool, and I'm just going to make a little bit of a rectangle that's a little bit just curved. And I'm going to do the same thing here and here. I'll even push this in a little bit more. And now that I'm happy with it, I'm going to move this towards the back. And I'm going to move this towards the back as well. And I'm just going to reposition my shadow where I want it. You can see that my shadow, I can even make it a little bit bigger since I have a mushroom. So I'll probably do something like this so that it fits a little bit better. And there you can see I created a mushroom. Maybe for my next one, I want to maybe instead of have a whole tree, I want to create a twig that's kind of just sticking out of the ground, or a piece of a flower or something. So you have different options, and I showed you each of them. You can either go with changing a couple of their colors, changing the shape and adding a couple of stuff that trees will have, or just completely having new cool stuff that fits with your theme, and that's really all that matters the most. But make sure you guys have 4 for each of them. So I'm still missing 1 for this one. And this one has 4, and my last one has 4 as well. And again, you guys can pick to do it for 1 of them, 2 of them, or all 3 of them as well. So you guys have a lot of ways to mix and match and really change this to really fit your game and make it really, really cool. But once you're done with that, the next step and the very last thing that we need to do for this game is add our particle effect.